this will be brief because I honestly can't find it.
If you drank more, Chris, you don't need notes.
Okay. Les has always been the more extemporaneous of the two of us. And I'm the one whose sphincter is a little tighter. So thank you, Les, and thank you, Sam. When Randy was like incessantly saying, write the speech, write the speech. So I was thinking about this, and what I was thinking about was the serendipity of everything. I mean, I really am just astounded. I don't know how I'm here, but so let me explain. I mean, it's just serendipity. Much of it is serendipity. So long ago, but not very far away, I showed up in the lab of a fellow at MIT who literally had arrived 3 days before. He seemed old, but he was 33 at the time. And what Richard Wortman didn't know was that he wasn't expected to have a freshman undergraduate who had taken 1 semester of inorganic chemistry to kind of piece together neurotransmitter metabolism. So Dick gave me a couple of books and a bunch of articles and said, go to the library and read these things. And then he gave me the keys to the lab. Have a good time. He gave me lots of mentoring, and 4 years later, there was a corpus of work, and it was mainly Dick's, but a little bit of it was mine, on precursor control of neurotransmitters. And I'm not going to tell you what they are, but essentially it has to do with you are what you eat. And thanks to that, and thanks to his recommendation, I got into Harvard Medical School. So that's serendipitous. Now this one is even weirder. So my mother married this fantastic guy, Larry Beal, after my dad died. So Larry had 3 kids. The oldest son, Barry, is here. Barry's wife, Judy Topol. Their family were childhood friends with this guy who ended up being one of Harvard's youngest professors. So I get into Harvard, and Judy and her sister say, you gotta meet this guy, you gotta meet this guy. So I thought I was being pleasant. I guess he thought I was yelling about married students.
Those 2 things can be the same.
Yeah.
I think you're pleasant, and I think you're yelling.
Well, that's usually with me. Okay, so I didn't realize that, again, this is serendipitous. I didn't realize that internal medicine did not equal intern. All I knew was that internal medicine meant that Sadie had too much salty locks and was in congestive heart failure, and my entire life was going to be pushing Lasix. And I didn't want that, so I went to him and said, please, please, save me from this. He said, not so fast, take another year and I'll consider. So I got into the residency. I think that, again, that's serendipitous. So here's the weirdest one of all. So Randy needs to get a dress for a wedding. We never shop together. I mean, what do? I can shop for myself. I shop for her, but I have to be nice. We go out to Chestnut Hill, and there's this newlywed who's working. They said, you go sit down here, because they knew that I had nothing to do with the dress. Go drink some coffee. Very fancy store called Allergy. So I'm sitting there while she's in the back, and this lovely newlywed comes up and starts chatting with me. What do you do? What do you do? And she says, well, I'm new in town. We're from New York, and my husband is going to start this residency. You wouldn't know what it is. It's kind of weird specialty radiation. That's Diane Botnick.
Oh my God.
So that's how
She met you first.
That's how I. That's right. That's how I, as a junior, met my eventual chief resident. A junior, and I took the rotation, and then I loved it. He let me back in. So.
But I'm not older than Chris.
That's right. Because I was in internal medicine with a second, exactly. So he became my chief resident, and Marty Levine, who we both loved, took care of, and then he became the chief of the service, and then my partner, and truly my closest friend. So these chance events keep piling up. I was in England. My research was cratering. Nothing was working, and my lab mate, Trevor Stevens, wanted to go up to the south of France. Would you go please dose my mice up with phenylalanine mustard. It's a chemotherapy agent. So I did the experiment. And I'm left with some LPAM here, and I'm left with some mice with tumors there. And I got my Mizonidazole in the pocket. I go, what the hell? I'll put all 3 into the mice. The sum of the tumor cell kill was much more than one would have expected from just the 2 together. And that, it didn't do anything for me, but it kept all of radiobiology going for the next 10 years.
By the way, he stored the Mizonidazole in my freezer at home. The consequences of
I
that.
won't tell you what the DEA thought the mice was. And the serendipity continues. I met Beverly at the Dana-Farber, and she really knew. She had this whole taxonomy of chemotherapy and hypoxia, and when chemotherapeutic agents would work hypoxic and when they wouldn't. And that's what I was interested in too. So that's what kept me going in the lab. And again, and then the last crazy one is that Sam and Leslie mainly wanted to have a computer-controlled radiotherapy machine at the BI. They had one at the Deaconess. So they went to Varian. I hope there's nobody from Varian here. If there is, forgive me. And said, do you guys have a computer-controlled radiotherapy machine? Jack Coates, a dear man, says to, whether it was Leslie or Sam, that's the stupidest idea we ever heard of. So a couple of years later, I'm stumbling around at Varian, we're in Burbank, and they were trying to sell us stuff, and I walked into a room where I wasn't supposed to be. And Joe Jakanowski is there, pressing buttons, and the machine is moving, computer-controlled radiotherapy. They said, this is really cool. And they said, I can't talk to you, and it disappears. And a few years later, he's working for himself and says, I'd like to sell you a billing program. I'm not working for Varian anymore. I said, well, we'll buy the billing program, but how about that computer-controlled radiotherapy? And he said, do you think anybody would buy that? That was impact. So I'm not how sure any of this happened, but the last 30 years have been a hell of a lot of fun. Now, one thing which is not serendipity has been less in my involvement with Mike Fiore and the people at Vantage. After I was done with ASTRO, before Leslie adopted beautiful children, and I knew that I couldn't leave. At that time, I thought I possibly could and was thinking of going back to academics. Leslie and Mike got together. They had worked together at Stanford. And I said to him, I said, well, I understand that you're interested in exceptional clinical care, but, I really think that if I'm going to be involved, we have to do something with quality and with EMO. And I needed to know that the executives at this company believed in the same thing. And I had no reason to worry. I mean, Mike and Marshall Solomon and Mark Ahern and Bill Valentine and Mark Shalvarge and all of the ops vice presidents, Rich DeVersa, Neil Pinkel, and Ed Mercado. Even the controller, Joe Chang, is an expert in outcomes, and Scott Castle is, and my dear friend Elliot, he's the guy who pushes us all to do it. So we all believe that we will succeed, not because of fancy marketing, not because of we need to have good equipment, but that's a necessary, but it's not sufficient, but because we're going to prove that we have superior outcomes. And it gives me something to do, because I can't be in the lab anymore, but we are going to show, I'm convinced of this, that things that you do result in better outcomes. And all of you are going to help, and I thank you so very much. So thank you all for your support, thank you for your friendship, and let's have fun.